Great. So this talk is kind of put together. I'm going to start off with a little bit of inspiration. And I think in terms of course-based outreach and required course-based outreach, I think some of the biggest challenges that I heard from March meeting and beyond is justification of this outreach. And so I'm going to kind of start with a little primer, and it's also kind of a little inspiration why I think it's important. Personally, and I think hopefully there's some overlap over here. And so, like Ali said, I'm in St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. We've been doing the outreach for about pretty much since 2000. And we'll kind of explain that as we go. So what are we going to discuss? We're going to kind of, what are we doing currently? I'll talk about that. We might have some more time to do that. What are our obstacles? How do we overcome them? And steps moving forward is kind of the summary of all of that. So what are we currently doing? So we have these outreach, and this is, I went to undergrad at Colorado State, so I was involved in Little Shop of Physics. So if those of you who've seen Little Shop of Physics recognize the bankers boxes and the setup. So we kind of adopted that kind of model in there to have students engage with the community. And over here on the left is some students sharing at our Hispanic Heritage Month in Northfield, and here we're at a student at a school visit. And here's some other outreach right here. This one is actually part of another course on the left. There's an engineering practicum or engineering design course that they had the students come in here and interact with community members. And on the right is actually one of our students with a friction pen demonstration, which was kind of cool, which I think Anna was working in a friction lab at St. Olaf, and they just got a publication. So she got to do a little bit of outreach that incorporated her research as well. And in general, this is all action. And I feel like we talk about things in action. And I was lucky and honored enough to receive some support from the college with a social justice award for this work. And I think this is really a way that we action. And I like to put this in here because I think there needs to be a little bit more overlap between science and social justice and intentionality between that. And if we look at Ibram Kendi breaks down actions as racist and or anti-racist. And a racist action, in his definition, is one supporting a racist policy through their inaction or expressing a racist idea. And this could apply to racist or sexist, anti-LGBTQ plus classes and everything. If we're not doing anything, that's not enough. We need to take action. And so how do we take action to be more anti-racist, not only in our interactions, but also in supporting our science and building it forward? How do we express that through action? So what actions can we take to make these steps through inequality? And this can apply to anything. So just not doing it may not be enough. So let's take some action. And I think this group has a lot of action that they're taking, which is great. And so action and inaction. And so this is from this, and these are some of the arguments that I kind of come up with when people say, well, what does this have to do with science? Well, science is about truth and understanding. And they say, well, we should just focus on the data. We just got to concentrate on the data. And APS has a lot of, and these might be a little bit older. These are the ones I grabbed. And these are retention and so here's the data. If they want the data about the inaction, we have it here. And so we have underrepresented minorities in physics, college-age population, and all bachelors. And so that's kind of the percentage. And in physics, we're not close to representing the location in the college age PAP. So there's some imbalance here. And so the data is showing that there is more action that we need to do. And we can say, we can look at this, and I know that there are a couple people, at least one other, some Marty, that are data points on this line, and we show this here, and these are number of African American and Hispanic people earning a doctorate, classes 94 to 2019 here. So we have the number of, this is not percentage, this is number. So this is kind of it's hard to say this. And I show this to the students because a lot of times the students will feel isolated. And when you can look at these graphs and you can actually see if you did not do if you did not graduate, like this graph would physically change. And that's very impactful in saying like, look, you are out here, you're doing the work and you see yourself as a data point. But of course, you're not a data point over all of these. And so getting this kind of grounds the students like, well, what needs to happen? How can we go through all of this? How can we change these curves? And so what is our end goal? And so I used AI to generate an image of a scientist and a social justice advocate over here, embracing each other. And so this is an AI created images on Dolly. I just put it in. That was the prompt. I want an image of a science embracing a social justice advocate. Can you tell which one is which? Is the question. It's kind of hard, something like we have here. And how do you tell which one is which? It's kind of tricky. And so this gets back to the character. What does a scientist look like? And society tries to dictate what a scientist looks like. Of course, we have great images of scientists that have done a lot of good work, and probably the most recognized scientist of all time, advanced time of the millennium. Einstein here is there, but of course, that's not what all scientists look like. And also, there might be some re-examining the canon. He had a lot of help as well. And we have social ideas of what's in popular culture, what a scientist looks like. You have to act like this. Which ones are the scientists here? And all these stereotypes. And then we have what you want to guess here with these stereotypes. So we have these images that are being put out there that are always kind of supporting or driving what the narrative or of what we think a scientist looks like. So we need to change the narrative a little bit. And what effect does that narrative have? Well, there's a lot of effects that have. And I think some of us in conversations, I know I've felt all these things at once. And you're here, they're this happy scientist, you're really excited, hands up, you're really engaged, ready to go to scientists. And then you have people talk to you, maybe in undergraduate, saying your professors didn't struggle with this. You shouldn't expect to be a professor if you're struggling with it. This was said to me. These were both said to me. You're only another grad student said to me at a conference, like, well, you're only in grad school because you're Hispanic. That's the only way that's the only reason you got here. And so these are other images out there that are reinforcing, and then you have to start to carry around all these other weights, the stereotype. When you have so few amounts of people going through, then you feel like you have to carry the burden of all these stereotypes. And this leads to imposter syndrome. And then it's also like safety, like your safety, you feel like all these other weights. You have to do all of the hard things in science that it's hard for everybody while carrying these weights around. And so what do we need to do? Well, sometimes finding better role models that we can identify with, supporting each other, promoting identity and belonging, and making everyone feel safe. So those are kind of the key things. So what are some better role models out there? I just have a couple here. Of course, we have Millie Dresselhaus, and this is a great quote I found from her. The boys in science classes were towards the bottom of the class. They always used to come to me for help. That might be somewhat significant in my story because I never got the idea that science was a man's profession. So that idea that science was a man's profession that was imported by society, whether it was in her classes, she was sheltered from that idea and she didn't have that burden to carry, of course. And she accomplished amazing things. And of course, another one, was Ronald McNair. I put this because I was a McNair scholar in undergrad, and he had this his brother Carl in a story corps about him said, as youngers, a show came on TV called Star Trek. Now, Star Trek showed the future where black folk and white folk, all kinds of folk, working together. I looked at it as science fiction. That wasn't going to happen, really. But Ronald saw it as science possibility. So, giving that view that we're all a part of this and we're all shattered down and science is accessible to all is a motivating factor for these scientists that accomplish great things. And so, how can we promote that in the future? Well, with these role models, and let's make more role models. So how do we make more role models? I'm also part of a posse program. So this is like a cohort model. These are my posse students. I told them I would give them a shout out. So it's a cohort model they're going through together. And we have another role model at St. Olaf. We have an action team for the sciences and the natural sciences and mathematics have an action team, and these students are part of hiring processes for faculty and support system hold events to help combat imposter syndrome and support everyone in the sciences. And so to accomplish these goals, we need to start changing the culture, bring new ideas and energy in, and welcome and elevate all. And I think students really want to make a difference. And I see this talking with some of these posse students and other students coming in to science. They say, "Oh, I want to go into science. What do you?" And I said, "Oh, that's great. What are you going to do?" And a lot of them say, "I want to be a doctor so I can make a difference. So I'm going into biology and chemistry." And well, we can do that. I say, well, you can do that in physics. They say, oh, I don't know. Oh, that's too hard. Oh, all these misconceptions. I can't make this difference with physics. And I think we all here know that's a misconception, but how do we propagate that out? So we have to make it intentional. And this is where I think informal physics can really step in and bring these students out there, bring us out there to show that physics can permeate in all of these social goods. And so hopefully these are going to be the next set of role models. They're out there, they're engaging, they are showing the next generations out there, but they're also showing, especially in community events, they're showing that science is accessible to all. And right here, and so there's some other pictures from our events going through. And so that's kind of our motivational factor. Like, how can we bring in through our coursework, and attract students that may come from different backgrounds and show them you can make a difference in physics, especially, and you can give back right away and be engaged. And it is not a cold science, and it is a way to engage the world around us and find the awe and all of this. And so that's kind of we're hoping to bring in more help meet our, and I'll get to this a little later, bring in those students that say, can we change the culture somehow? This is the big dreams section, I think, right now. Can we change the culture that when they come in to college, they say, I want to make a difference in the world, and physics is a way to do that on par with going into medicine or going and so how can we show that? Well, we have to give them an opportunity to actually do this. And so that's kind of where this came from. We have, I didn't put this in the slide, but I think we can all agree as we go through physics education, we get theoretical background. We get exposed to that. We get exposed to experimental background. Those are core parts of almost every department. You have lab courses, you have theory courses, but where is the engagement with the outreach? Where is the engagement with the community? Where is the communication with your community or the broader public, or even the other majors on your college. You can define your community however you want. So, and as we know, the NSF has broader impact statements in their grants. And so, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But this is kind of our course structure sequence at St. Olaf. First year, we have matter, and we teach out of matter interactions. So we have mechanics and E&M throughout that, and it's based on building up from the atomic and molecular side, the mechanics there, and it's simulation, a lot of coding-based labs. And then the second year, we have the analytical 3, and this course right here is the waves and relativity course. It has some hands-on lab for waves, but then relativity, we had some simulation labs. And so we had simulations kind of going through this. And then we have, this is the first semester, second semester, it's more of a deeper quantum based modern physics, and then a modern law separate lab course with that as well. And then upper level electives. And so this is, I think, some sort of variance of this, whether I know it adjusts for people on term trimester quarter systems, but this is kind of the general flow of what I've seen right here. You have your intros, you can have your sophomore level, and then you have your upper level electives, whatever they can be. And so in this analytical 3, this is a picture from this year. This is one of our analytical 3 students interacting with some high school students that came in onto campus and showing them an angular momentum. And so you can kind of see there's a little wheel there, and we spun it up and we see gyroscopic motion with that. And this is what they built in the class. It doesn't quite have to do with waves. It doesn't quite have to do with relativity, but it has to do with some of the mechanics coming forth. And that's kind of what we see in this course-based structure. And so in this analytical 3, waves and relativity, that's where we have students build these, and that's the course that I teach. It's their first sophomore level course, and they get a chance to do this design process. And so how did this come to be? Well, it started in 2020. We had, of course, 2020. And so that fall, we had like, it was all remote. There were some students on campus, some that were off campus. How do we fight this isolation and get people connected? And so this was sophomore level class. How can we do this? And we had them create experiences, demos that they can make with a small budget, $20 to $30, and that I could use I could mail them things if they're remote, and they can make something that we could then deploy at the public library. And it was ways for them to, and this was very, how can you demonstrate a wave phenomena, designing it, working on it in your dorm room or in your house that somebody else could do in their house? And then we could disseminate it at the library, because there's lots of kids out there in the community that need science, that aren't getting hands-on science, and they need to be distracted for long times while their parents or their dad was teaching the class. So I wanted also a hint of selfishness, that I wanted my kids to have stuff to do so I could focus on my work too, to balance all that. So there's community needs in it out there. And so that was kind of how we did it in 2020. We built these things, and then the students went and they designed them and then took them to the library, and the library disseminated them. We disseminated like 100 of these packets. There was about 10 groups, and each group made 5 or 6 that we sent out. And then, so now, what's the next evolution? The next evolution was creating, and that's kind of where the inception of the course-based research started. And in 2020, we had to give up some labs. We had to give them up because we couldn't quite do them. And so then the next year, the decision was, do we incorporate those labs back, or do we pivot to saying, okay, we can do without those labs, and now we can trade those labs for a design project. And so we traded 3 of these standard labs for this hands-on design project to build a demo to share with the public. And so, and I think that's one of the key things, is that you can't, and I think you can't force it in and not expect to give up something. So thinking about what were these labs, and some of these labs, and I hinted before, the first year there was a lot of programming, and so some of these labs were based upon coding labs that they just spent the whole year coding, and not very hands-on. Let's give them a chance to create. So you get experimental process in creating, design, and then we get to deploy it out in the public. And so the students will work in teams to create a demo to inspire. And so we get about 8 to 12 new experiences. And a lot of these were, some students really dove in and said, well, I'm so excited about doing this. And so I'm like, I don't really know. And it was really, and one of the things I really enjoy about this is getting them to think back to what got them into science. The large majority is like, I had a great science teacher in high school, or I interacted with things right here, or going through. So they get a chance to reflect back on their journey and say, I've always wanted to make something like this, and reconnect. And some of them saw demos and like, I want to do that, and I want to have a way to share that with more people. And so currently we have a library, about 30 demos since 2001 that we've created, and we're actually starting to create more. And so that's that's kind of how we brought it into the course. Now, originally it was wave demos because it tied in really well with the waves and relativity section. And we've had to, once we've exhausted that, we've kind of expanded out into more, and just kind of like, it is kind of like a capstone of like, you learned a checkpoint, you've learned a lot of things up to this point, a year and a half in this field, or a little bit. So what do you want to share at this point? Let's do this check-in. Let's not wait till the end to share. And we'll talk about the benefits of all of these that we've seen so far. But we did lose some of the content of these labs. And some of the content has been made up by losing other homework assignments and having more little hands-on, or having a hands-on day. We lose some of the depth, but I feel like the students in content, the students nowadays are really good at absorbing content online, going in as deep as they want. And let's give them more active learning, hands-on, all the best practices. And if we can replace that and get them thinking about making these connections, I think what is gained in this hands-on experience, being able to communicate with different groups, and that is something that is more that is harder to replace than content. And I think content can be caught up. But all of these need to be deployed somewhere. And so this is things like, well, where can we deploy it? And so I talked about the public library. And so we started this partnership with the library. And we are lucky to have a really good library in Northfield. And we had discussions in there, and we started getting the kits. And then they said, we do this Hispanic Heritage celebration. And I knew the person that ran that, and they said, you should bring the science to that. And so making that opportunities, and there's other STEAM days that they have right here. And then public schools, I have kids in schools, so there was an easy way to talk with people. And I actually met teachers at the Hispanic Heritage Month that said, we need to bring this to our school. How can we do this? And there are community programs after school. There's lots of other ones. And then the last one that I think is really, that I'm really excited about, is that the TRIO programs that are on campus. So the TRIO programs, I think, started with McNair SSS and uh, upward educational talent search, or maybe it was educational talent search upward bound. I forget the trio of programs that were out there. And so educational talent search is a program to explore students to life after high school and give them and expose them. And it mainly serves first gen um, low income and underrepresented minority students. And our St. Olaf trio works with about 400 different students in different schools around the Twin Cities areas. So there's a big wealth right there. And it just kind of, and it gives them, what are the options after high school? And this is, we're starting to part with them. Can we bring these students in to engage with our class um, to share the science? And I'll show you some of the feedback that we got from there. So this is kind of the flow right here. We started out small, and then it's starting to build. We start to build more and more things in this design one. And now the design process, we'll have this for a couple more years, but we're going to kind of transition it into maybe refinement, more design, maybe bigger experiments, but still keep this partnership and having this communication with with partners, and I think there's a lot of benefits, as I'll highlight coming forward. And so how do we do this? And so what do we do in the class? I didn't prepare the week. I'm happy to talk more of this. We give these 3 labs. So the labs are about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and there's 3 kind of dedicated to this, and it gives students time to plan and create. So I have structured built-in time that I'm there to make sure that they're on task, and I'm kind of like brainstorming and how to create, iterate, and make sure that these are deployable. Some of them don't quite get to the deployable state. They kind of get there. And I think that's a good feedback to students as well, because now I don't know some other people out there, if students are doing something for me, they're willing to let it slide. They're like, it's not great, but I'll turn it in, that'll be fine. But now when they have to give it to somebody else, the accountability goes way up, and they realize, oh, maybe I can't really let this slide. And we prepare the students for the community. We worked with our office of outreach, and we have some surveys, and we give them time when we prep them. There's um, some other tools that were developed at University of Michigan for engagement and out there that we use to kind of get people in the space, think about the privileges that they've had and what kind of privileges that the students that we're going to interact with have, and how we can navigate that space. And then we go in there, engage. And in the engage part, we really want to try to sell it, and it's true that sell it to the partners, the students that we're going to interact with, whether it was in community school, after school, elementary, or the educational talent search, is that they are part of the process as well. We are not there to serve them in a sense. They are here to give us feedback on, are these experiments effective? And we have this with surveys coming back to them, and direct feedback from the students engaging, like, oh, I thought this was a really cool thing. The students weren't really jazzed on it. And then we did something a little different way, and oh, wow. Then they started getting it. And so they kind of see the way that the community interacts, and they get that feedback. But I think bringing the community into this as partnerships, like, we're building these things. We don't know if they're going to be effective out in the world when we deploy them. So we bring the students in and get that feedback. And then there's a reflection at the end on the process going through. And so what are the benefits for our students? And I think a couple JNIPERs ago, Tatiana talked a lot about this, but these are kind of what I kind of identified as the main ones. The first one I can start up here, the chance to give back. It gives the students a chance. They want to feel connected. And it kind of gives them a grounding of what am I doing out in the world? And understanding. Can you describe this phenomena to a high schooler, to a fifth grader? And they get to kind of think like they can describe it to me using the advanced language, but how can they create their own language and talk about things in a different way? And we talked about the broader impacts. NFS, the NSF requires broader impacts in their grants, just like they require good experiments and good theory. So we should prepare our students. If we prepare our students to do theory well and do experiments well, we should train them to do broader impacts well as well, in addition. Um, the soft skills, and I think we talked about all the soft skills, designing, interacting, communicating with a broad audience, managing all of these things. It's where we don't traditionally have ways in the physics curriculum to expose students to these. And these are skills that employers want at any level. Identity and belonging, and imposter syndrome and everything. It gives them, we're putting them out there, and us as a department, these are the scientists that we're producing. We back them. You are stewards of what we're doing, and you are our representation. And it gives them really can boost their identity and belonging. And we get these new role models out there as well. We get these new role models and students from other fields, bring them in, engage them. And I think the last one that is really part of the shared art, the required base that I like is this is a shared responsibility. And we might have done a lot of us has participated in outreach, and we think about the demographics of who's doing the outreach. It's usually probably where you're from. I saw there was a lot of the same type of people that are engaging. So how do we make this this is a shared responsibility that we all have to be a part, and having this as a required part is a way to show that, oh, we value this for everybody, and this is a responsibility, and these are problems that we all have to work together to address. So this is kind of this is where I've distilled these benefits. And then, so that's how this is another way to sell, like, well, what are the benefits to the students? And thinking about all of these benefits, there's a lot of overlap, but there's some of these you don't get as much overlap with these in our traditional courses. So these are things that we're adding to the experience and hopefully get people going. And well, what is the benefit to the institution? That's another way to sell it. If you say, well, why or how can you support it? Equity inclusion. We can read the team up report. They have a team up report, and outreach to get students out there is part of this. So it help with equity and inclusion goals. Of course, broader impacts is already say there. Can we work with other faculty that have broader impact, that have NSF grants, and they could plug into this? So if they start plugging into this, now we are the vehicle for the broader impacts. They don't have to think about anything, or they can unload that. We can collaborate, and we get this mutual feedback and get them to support this more. Connections with the college, and I think there are lots of opportunities that these programs don't have to live in an island with the college. Get the college involved, and it also gets the community involved with the college. I know there was a time I was at the Hispanic Heritage Month at Northfield, and they said, "Oh, you're from St. Olaf?" Like 40, and it was an older lady that said this, like, "Oh, like 20 years ago, we used to see the college out in the community, and it hasn't really happened. It's so good to see this connection." And the community is an important part of the college experience. So having that connection with the community is important. And of course, we break our stereotypes. We get our students, all of our students out there, exposing to all. And breaking that physics is not something that we do in isolation. We do it with a community and we can make an impact and give back, and you can have those impacts that you might not think of in physics, and to hopefully attract more students to and more ideas into physics. And so here's some feedback from our students as we went through here. So the first run, this was kind of open-ended. What do you want to do? And they said, it's outreach going beyond the tight boundaries of our physics department, inspiring others and to explore STEM. These are all very important for the survival and thriving of our department moving forward. By showing a diverse group of scientists from St. Olaf coming to teach elementary school kids, this is what scientists can look like. I hope we're breaking down barriers. This one, I like the second one. It was extremely humbling to work with elementary school students. Usually I must offer the advanced physics explanation for a presentation, which is difficult. However, elementary students need a super simply explanation, which was even harder to devise. I found the fact that I might not be smart enough to describe physics simple enough, both humbling and rewarding. And my role as a scientist can also be a role model for younger girls to look up to. And I know they can pursue a career in anything they want to. So these were some feedbacks going through from our students that participated. So we're getting them out there. They're feeling like, oh, I'm part of this. I am the role model. I am the scientist going in here already. And some of the high school participants, so these are educational talent search. They're high school, they have shorter sentences when they're writing out feedback forms. But this is what we got. It was really cool. We did a lot of science experiments and had fun. Science is easy and is everything. Okay, I got that. It is, and it is, this would be St. Olaf, is a big, smart school closer to home. Sense of scale, not that big, but it exposed them to the opportunity. So this is one that it'll be like, well, recruitment, people don't know about us. We're out there, we're getting out there, and they know they're closer to home. And that closer to home, if we want your DEI goals, work in the background, that's an important part of the underrepresented minority community is trying to stay close to home. Not for every, but the majority. Physics are not just experiments, it can also be fun. St. Olaf science courses are interactive and fun. And then we taught them some stuff like perpetual motion machine is impossible. So it was that little ball that keeps on going around. We kind of broke it out and we showed them. So they are getting a little bit of science content also. And when we set up all these things, part of it is for content, but a lot of it is for access, inclusion, and just sharing our excitement and hopefully getting others excited too. The content, they can go deeper if they want, but let's get it to all and then we can go from there. So how did we do this? I was lucky to have support from my department. And I kind of felt like as the pandemic was going on, this was the time to jump on it. So I did. And now that it's kind of getting in there, but departments, deans, DEI leadership, they want to hit these goals in new ways. And the outreach can be a way to hit these goals, especially the deans I put in there, broader impacts. We can incorporate broader impacts. So I think keys to doing this is identify community partners. We all are part of a community. We can talk to our colleagues. They might have kids in school and they might know the science teachers. They might know the librarians. What are the libraries in towns? We might do something at the local brewery in town. It could be it doesn't have to just be students. So getting out there, science accessible for all. And what level do you want to do this at? We're doing this at the second year level, but we're in talks. Do we put it earlier to get more people excited and cast? And I think there are earlier career, they can get engaged, but they don't quite have as much background in the material. So there's trade-offs. The second year, like, is this something they've seen more material and they can make more connections and they can be more independent in creating their projects. But I think if we build up the culture, I think that's going to be kind of thing like, oh, this is something you get to do, and going through all this. And it's been really nice. I've had many students saying that was fun. When can I do this again? When can I do this again? So now we kind of have like they've done that, they've been trained, and now if there's other volunteers events, I have this library. Like you guys have been here before. Share the word, bring your friends. Let's do some more. So you're gonna have to, and this is what else do you have to do? So that's kind of community partners, see where it could fit in your course, and then you exchange labs or work time for the project. So like you are trading, you're not losing content, you're trading content. You are, yeah, you might not cover um chaos in pendulums at the sophomore level, but maybe you make a double pendulum that kind of shows that. Or and you have this build up. So you're not really, you're getting different things and giving that unique perspective of content that's out there and a unique experience that they can get only in the classroom that they can't get anywhere else. That makes it more appealing, and it gives them more of a sense of belonging, the identity, I think. So um um too. And then so the design project, and getting through that design project, and like just making anything always has its hiccups. And there's students that say, oh, it should just work, like I'll be fine. And of course we all know that it rarely just works. And so getting them to reiterate and getting feedback from each other and sharing that with each other is kind of the sense. And of course, we did not get here alone. I want to send, and I kind of think about this. And so this kind of pulled into this. And since I'm at liberal arts school, I have to like incorporate, I think it's required to incorporate literature and humanities, bring it all through. And this is a quote from the Grapes of Wrath. Maud Jode, whose last name is, or whose maiden name is Hazlett. And it said, I've never heard tell of no Jodes or no Hazlett neither that ever refusing food and shelter or lift of the road to anybody that asked. And so I kind of carry this with me, and I think maybe we should update it. So I never heard tell no Juniper member nor Hazlett's neither ever refusing food and shelter, lift or road, or equal access, the support inclusion of their scientific pursuits to anybody that asked. And so I really value this community, and you guys are doing good work, and it's great to not be out there alone. And so with all of these, why is it important? Of course, all this AI is coming in, but we can break down the AI threats and everything in the future, taking care of taking away these weights so then we can accomplish our scientific goals. And here's all the thanks of all the people that are kind of over here, and thanks some of the colleagues. And I have some of the references up there kind of been, so yeah, Alyssa Melby is our outreach guru wizard at St. Olaf. She helps with the community partner, the physics department is all there. Of course, all the students have helped a lot, and I had colleagues higher up, and the community partners, Little Shop of Physics team that I've brainstormed a lot with. And I'm actually in Colorado right now because I'm bringing some St. Olaf students to Little Shop next week to build a bunch of stuff to make this bigger. And of course, JNIPER and everything else. So I'm happy to throw it up. Hopefully it wasn't too long going through, and happy to take any questions. So let's go.
Thank you so much, Eric.